Okay, so let's dive into a really fascinating story. We're talking about a massive geopolitical bet, one made by Donald Trump. You know, the guy who was once crypto's biggest critic? Well, he's now gambling the entire future of the US dollar on it. So we've got to ask, why this massive high-stakes reversal? Let's unpack it.
I mean, you have to remember, it really wasn't that long ago that his administration's view on crypto was, well, crystal clear. They basically called the whole industry a scam. I mean, the official line was totally hostile, completely dismissive. The idea of these digital currencies getting any real legitimacy? No way.
But then, a total 180. Fast forward to 2025, and suddenly, his administration is championing this thing called the Genius Act. And this isn't some minor tweak. We're talking about a huge piece of legislation that doesn't just legitimize crypto, it actively promotes a very specific kind, the US dollar stablecoin.
And that right there, that's the central puzzle we're tackling today. You know, what gives? Why the sudden, dramatic change of heart? What on earth could motivate a one-time crypto hater to bet the entire foundation of American economic power on this very technology? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out.
Okay, first up, let's look at the plan itself, how this whole gamble is supposed to work. Because this isn't just some random pivot, right? There's a grand strategy here, a real belief that this move could lock in American power for a whole new generation.
Now, to really get why they're taking such a huge risk, we've got to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. For decades, the US dollar has been king, no question. But that dominance, it's been slowly slipping. I mean, look at the numbers. It peaked back around the year 2000, and since then, its share of global reserves has been on a steady decline. So you can bet Washington is feeling the heat to find a new way to stay on top.
And their chosen weapon in this fight? The stablecoin. So what is it? Well, it's not like Bitcoin. A stablecoin is a digital token, sure, but it's issued by a private company, it's regulated by the government, and, this is the key part, it's backed one-to-one by safe, real-world dollar assets. The entire point is right there in the name, stability.
Yeah, seriously, just forget everything you know about the crazy up and down price swings of Bitcoin. The White House is betting on the exact opposite of that. They want a digital dollar that is asset-backed, totally stable, and regulated by them. The whole goal is to make this thing, and I quote, as reliable as cash in a wallet.
And we're not talking about some tiny niche market here. Just get a load of this number. $187 billion. And that's not the whole market. That's the value of just one stablecoin, Tether. It's just undeniable proof that there's already massive global demand for a digital version of the US dollar.
And listen, the potential for growth from here is just astronomical. You've got big players like Citi projecting that this market could grow more than 10 times by 2030. So you can see the thinking here, right? If all that explosive growth is tied directly to the US dollar, well, that's a massive strategic opportunity you just can't ignore.
So this Genius Act, it's all about building trust. First, it forces these companies to back every single digital dollar with real, high-quality assets. We're talking actual cash, short-term government bonds, the safe stuff. And they have to prove it with regular, independent audits. But here's the really clever part. It ropes these private currencies into the US regulatory system. That means they have to follow American anti-money laundering rules and this is huge, they have to enforce US sanctions. They can literally freeze transactions on command. Oh, and it also bans them from paying interest, which is a really smart move to stop everyone from pulling their money out of traditional banks all at once.
So here's the bottom line, the big goal. The administration is betting that if they regulate and promote these US dollar stablecoins, the whole world will start using them. And if the world is using them, that creates this massive, constant demand for US assets to back all those digital coins. It would basically lock in American financial power for decades to come. That's the royal flush they're hoping to hit.
Okay, so that's the dream scenario. But we all know every gamble has a flip side. And in this case, the risks are absolutely enormous. The whole plan could completely backfire and lead to the exact opposite of what they want. And this is where things get really, really fragile.
So what about the giant hole in this strategy? I mean, think about it. The Genius Act is an American law, but these companies, the ones issuing the stablecoins, they can set up shop literally anywhere in the world. So how do you enforce American rules on a company that's based in some country with, really lax oversight? The short answer, it's not easy at all.
And that's where you can see this potential chain reaction of failure. It starts with fierce competition. Issuers start bending the rules, offering shady incentives to get more users. Then some of those issuers based overseas just start ignoring the US rules completely. And all it takes is one or two of those bad actors to cause a major crisis, which could totally collapse public trust in all dollar stablecoins, bringing the whole system crashing down.
Right. And none of this is happening in a vacuum. You've got America's allies and its rivals watching this whole gamble unfold. And believe me, they're not just standing by and watching. They are making their own moves, which is kicking off a whole new kind of financial Cold War.
So you've basically got three competing visions for the future. You've got the US betting on these privately run, government-regulated stablecoins. Then there's Europe. They're kind of wary of what they call American crypto-mercantilism, so they're building their own thing, a state-run digital euro. And then you have China, which has a totally different playbook. They want a new system that cuts out the dollar completely.
Let's talk about that Chinese plan for a second. It's called the mBridge project, and it is a direct challenge to American financial power. It's basically a new set of pipes for international payments that's designed to completely bypass the dollar. So a buyer in, say, Thailand can pay a seller in Saudi Arabia directly, without ever touching a US bank or a US dollar. And the scary part for Washington, more and more countries are signing up.
All right, so we've weighed the potential upside against all of these very real risks, and it brings us to the final critical question. Could this incredibly bold move to save the dollar actually end up being the very thing that destroys it? Could this be a massive self-inflicted wound?
You know, there's a really great analogy for this whole situation: the internet. Remember the early promise, this open, connected, global village? But the reality today? It's often fractured, with walled gardens and deep divisions. Well, stablecoins have that same kind of promise: frictionless, global finance. But they could just as easily lead to a much more fractured and, frankly, unstable financial world.
And this brings us to what might be the single most important point of this entire explainer. For this whole gamble to actually work, for the US to dodge all those risks and actually see the rewards, it all boils down to one single thing: global cooperation.
And look, that's not just some fuzzy feel-good idea. It's a hard requirement. It means US regulators have to build super tight relationships with their counterparts all over the world. They need to make sure that every single US dollar stablecoin, no matter where it's based, is playing by the exact same strict rules. And that, my friends, is a monumental diplomatic challenge.
And right there, you hit the central contradiction of this whole thing. You have a strategy that absolutely demands unprecedented global cooperation, being run by an administration that is famous for its America First approach. I mean, their foreign policy and their economic policy on this seem to be in a head-on collision.
Because without that international cooperation, without everyone getting on board, this whole plan could backfire spectacularly. Instead of reinforcing the dollar's dominance, it could actually speed up the creation of rival financial systems. It could splinter the global economy and leave America in a much weaker position, a classic self-inflicted wound. So that's where we're left. It's an incredibly high-stakes bet with really only two ways it can go. Is this the genius move that secures another century of American dominance? Or is it the one fatal mistake that finally dethrones the dollar? We'll have to wait